Welcome back, everyone. This is the Night Shift. We're moving on to North America. ZP here with DDK and Dan. As is, we had one heck of a day in the EU. Things went pretty long.
Yeah, normally we don't see it go that long, but for good reason. We've got a new prize pool. The teams are really fired up and fighting for it. And I love the storyline there, with Zuggy being able to, I don't say get revenge, but I think, put to bed, I guess, any doubt that he was a good switch onto the team.
Yep. Even though it was kind of fun the last game where, okay, low-key W still won, but we showed the damage in the middle of the game going like, wait, what's the Viper damage? What's actually going on here? It's like, not actually needed. But as is the beginning of NA show, we got to tell you how things work here around the Night Shift. The format is we have a challenger match, and the winner of the challenger match goes on into the money match. And in NA, we've been blessed with the fact that, damn, we have 5 viable teams in NA, and they've been kind of working on rotation where we run a qualifier every week to make sure that the teams don't spend more than 2 weeks out at a time.
Yeah, I think it's really, really cool. I think from everything I've seen, the community really loves it. The fact that you're getting the co-streams on that as well and getting the visibility. I think it's just nice because I think we didn't start out doing stuff like that, but Deadlock esports is becoming more and more visible, and it's good to see.
Yeah, in this case, Chubby Bunnies. You're wondering who in the world were the Chubby Bunnies? It is effectively no earnings plus Young Calc and Goober. A few changes beyond that, but no earnings is dead. Chubby Bunnies is alive, and apparently they went on a scrimbuck rampage after losing Birth Clock. So, we're not going to see them here today, but may see them soon. However, Dan, Melee Creeps are trying to break what some have called the Shopify curse. Ever since Shopify has sponsored Deadlock Night Shift, Melee Creeps have yet to win. They lost their title, and they've been trying to find the right mix to finally take the throne back.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think, Yoshi is also getting in the mix here, making things a bit more difficult with that small update recently. I think the meta was already shifting a fair amount. I think lots of teams in the EU or NA were adjusting to it. But then you had that patch coming in, making it a bit more spirit dominant, like actually pretty significant changes across the board. So I think we're seeing a really interesting meta right now. And it'll be cool to see if Melee Creeps can kind of adapt now that we've got this elevated price pool as well. It's never been more important.
Yeah, I mean, they're actually off tweeting saying maybe the addition of Intel and Newegg will be enough to counterbalance the fact that they haven't been able to win with Shopify as a sponsor. But, Dan, speaking about Shopify, people thought that they saw the last of Jake and Jason today, and no. We got to go back and visit how they use Shopify to build an own business.
All right, what's up, guys? We're back, and we're going to continue working on our store. Jason, I know we had this big idea, but now it's getting kind of real. I how do we price this? How are we supposed to figure out, the business aspects of this store?
Yeah, we might know Deadlock, but we sure as hell don't know anything when it comes to the business aspect of having a shop. So I think maybe asking Psychic what kind of pricings we can expect or what kind of prices we should go for here compared to the market would be a decent idea. Just get an idea of what we could sell this for.
Yeah, the market research aspects of building a business. I think that's something that a lot of people find pretty daunting, but I mean, this is the great part about having Psychic fully integrated with our shop. It knows, the information in our shop that it already has, and it can give us that advice that's actually really specific to our store. This is really interesting.
At the top, right? It talks about manufacturing costs, stuff like that, to know how much it costs to manufacture versus how much we sell it for and what kind of money we can make off of that. But even down below that, the market context is super helpful to get us an idea of where this would actually be placed when it comes to selling.
Yeah, this is great. Obviously, we haven't set up our suppliers yet or anything, but this is really good information to help us think about how we want to price the store. And then again, all the details are right here. So it would be pretty easy. So, they're suggesting, hey, maybe we could up the price a little bit. We, can make the product high quality, appeal to fans of the character in the game. That could be great. Once again, though, it's I'm in this spot of, hey, what should we do next? And I kind of feel hey, this is one thing that I've seen Psychic do really well is well, let me save this change for now. And then what items should be next on our to-do list to set up the shop?
That's a good point, because obviously we have to think about the forward-facing aspect of the store. And actually, you're right,
Okay.
Customize your online store, which is definitely, something we're going to need to do, because you can't just have a blank slate. You got to have something there. But luckily, if I'm not mistaken, Shopify has us covered with that.
Yeah, so it's given us like a few solid steps we can take to break down the process and make it easier. So yeah, let's do that. Let's take a look at the online store. Although we're gonna do that just a little bit later in the show.
You know, Dan, I think the lesson learned here and how accessible that is, that if Jake and Jason can figure it out, you absolutely can at home.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think that's a fair point. Because these guys are grinding a lot of deadlocks, so I don't know how they have time to run a business. But hey, with these tools these days, you can do a lot of surprising things, CP.
Well, also a little bit surprising here, taking a look at the rosters here today, we have some changes, or in Melee Creep's case, we have a substitution. Due off on a long planned vacation, and in is going to be Poppers. So, in our roster sheet here, Dan, usually we have the, minus this person, plus this person, but Dew isn't actually off the team. Dew is still a very proud Melee Creep, just off on a vacation. Instead, they got Poppers coming in the sub.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I'm not super familiar with Popper's hero pool. Is it in any way comparable to Dew? Are you privy as EP?
I'm trying to remember what Poppers played back in the day, because it's kind of funny. Poppers is one of those players that was in the old era of Deadlock, like back in the Fight Night era. Poppers was on top teams for like 8-9 weeks in a row back then, but then, kind of went into the shadows and is now a top prospect. We're subbing in for Melee Creeps, and I think trialing with teams as of late. So we'll see where Poppers is nowadays. I'm actually not immediately clear on what he's going to be playing, but I assume if you're subbing in for Dew, you're probably going to be playing at least Dew's hero pool tonight.
Either way, it's a pretty strong team, Melee Creeps. So, even with Sandon, you'd expect them to do a good job. And to be honest, CP, sometimes we actually see it's kind of dangerous territory to take a stand in, because, they'll find out maybe that there's not a low chance that they would find out that maybe they'll just play really well with Poppers and be like, But Melee Creeps are pretty well established at this point. I'm not aware of any issues internally that would have them, thinking of any replacements. So I'm sure Dew is safe.
That is the esports conundrum, though, isn't it? Where, okay, another person has to play in my place. It's like, in the back of your head has to be, what if they win? What if they win really big? Do I still have a roster spot? And sometimes the answer is no. But, we'll put those thoughts aside and take a look at the new Bird with Clock roster. There have been changes, and, to some people, it may be a surprise. Fan favorite Aiden, no longer with Bird with Clock. Of course, when Bird with Clock initially rose onto the scene, it was Aiden on Vindicta that was a huge powerhouse. But things have changed. Vindicta not so much in the meta. Also, Cool Cheese off the roster. Instead are Flaws and Stride, and if you watch the qualifier, words are hard. You know that Flaws brings to the table really good M1 play. In particular, just absolutely carried the last game of the qualifier on Geist.
That's awesome. I mean, honestly, there are so many players that I think, especially, as the game picked up a lot of popularity more so in that really big The Old Gods update that we got not too long ago. I feel like there's a lot of people that are taking it a lot more seriously. There's a deep talent pool out there that we are not familiar with. So it's really cool to see that potentially get surfaced here today. Obviously, it's always going to be sad to lose players like Aiden and Cool Cheese because they've got just such a brand themselves. But hey, I'm here to see the new talent coming up through the ranks.
And you know what, Dan? Because we know the draft is nearly ready in the background, we're just ready to get into it. We're going to see what the Mo 1v1 looked like between these two teams, where, honestly, with so much changing in the meta, I think you do really want your choice of first or second pick. We'll see what goes down here and who was able to take it. For Melee Creeps, we got Scout, and for Bird with Clock, we got Stride. And look at the setup here, Dan. This is a little bit more majestic, not hiding behind, but staring each other down.
Yeah, I feel like we need to... Or are we already doing channel points betting for this? I feel like we need to set up the fixtures right now, because it's a boxing match. What is it without some channel points on the line? But you're right, though. In terms of the meta, I'm not even sure where things stand in terms of who wants which priority at this point. And it's a bit different to EU. And I respect it. Just right off the top rope once again. Scout's he's gonna be the superior Mo.
Hey, if Melee Creeps is breaking the curse, that is a pretty good way to start, is what I'll say. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can judge too much off EU. For us, a lot of our teams were pretty adamant on staying on 2 bans for now. The other EU tournament going on in R1 is 3 bans. So the draft meta in EU may be a little bit impacted by the various different formats, but for North American teams, nothing has changed. And Melee Creeps, first ban they're coming in with here is Mirage. And I think while Mirage is higher priority, Dan, to me, I think this is a little bit targeted at Arctic, where it's one of Arctic's 2 main heroes. And if you're Melee Creeps and take a Shiv after, you've kind of decimated a lot of his known hero pool.
Something I got to mention too is this, there is the meta right now is really interesting in terms of like what a top flight picks actually look like. Mina being one of those, being obviously super spirit bursty in this more spirit meta that we're in now. But Sinclair and Doorman definitely seem like right at the top. Apollo as well. I'm curious, how the Doorman play will go today, but there we go. Doorman picked straight out the gate by Melee Creep. So they're feeling it too. I don't expect it's going to be a gun Doorman from John, the old John special. I don't know if you think, if you've been seeing anything different.
I think Bell is too good right now. I mean, there's a reason why everyone is going with Bell build. I think for Birth Clock, though, it's probably Shiv +1, and maybe it's Bebop Shiv with how valued Bebop has been. Also, I'm a little bit sad that Puckett had to deal with the family emergency, because that me and Puckett all basically came into the world within 4 days of each other. Like, we both have mid-May birthdays with no more than 3 days of difference between all of us. It's wild.
Right? May birthdays. May is clearly the best birthday month.
Nope.
Yeah. Lash is probably born in May as well. That's why he has so much aura. I mean, it's clear.
No. Birth Clock, okay, they take Lash, and Lash has been a higher prio pick in NA, but it's a little bit weird to me because I feel like if you're Melee Creeps, you have to be angling a little bit towards Shiv here. Also, you grab Apollo for laning, where the one theme of the day, shown in both play and just, talking to the players. We heard it from EU and Lightbringer. We heard from NA and Average saying it's a laning meta. And when you're worried about your laning performance, you want a strong lane hero like Apollo. And, perform here, Dan. Melee Creeps comes in with the Shiv, so Arctic having his hero pool put under, I think, a little bit of strain right at the beginning.
Yeah, something, it's a pretty S tier, Doorman, Apollo, Shiv right now. And with Mina banned as well, it's pretty rough. At least they take the silver away. I think that was something that I was hoping would be the case. In terms of the laning meta, though, what are they looking for here, ZP? Are we thinking Dynamo? So Dynamo is really good. I know that NA is not picking up Sinclair as much, and it does feel like Sinclair does counter Dynamo quite nicely. But at the same time, Dynamo is still just like pretty damn good right now. So I would not be surprised to see that coming into play, or potentially get banned here by Melee Creeps.
Yeah, I think it's a good shout to expect Dynamo potentially coming to play. Although it's a little bit weird because Dynamo does this thing where Dynamo will be a high priority all throughout the day, and then teams will randomly forget that he exists. But in this case, it's not the case, as Melee Creeps take down Dynamo. Bird Clock gonna have their choice of first pick coming out here. I'm trying to think back to the qualifier and what may be valued. It may be a Geist coming out. Flaws looked really good on Geist. It also is a hero that is in Arctic's hero pool. Instead, they go Pocket. I think that they're probably going to round out with Geist, but the Pocket picks are kind of interesting because I feel like it's just been within the last 5 days in Scrimsdan that Pocket has had his resurgence.
I love it. I'm such a Pocket fan. He is so quintessentially a Deadlock hero to me. So I love to see that. And Warden as well, I think is an interesting pickup for Melee Creeps. Just insofar as, for me, it's been fun to see how he's actually become a much more dominant M1 hero. Like, for example, just look at how there is no Venator. It hasn't been banned, fully available. No one is even caring about Venator. You're getting a Warden over Venator. What has come to the world?
I think in here it was part a deny as much as it was a pick, because on the watch party, John was saying, no, Ven is still good. He had the secret Venator build that he was going to pull out. Ooh. But he also really likes Warden right now. Warden has way more survivability than Venator. And the one thing you have to know here, Dan, about John's Warden when he was talking about it, not going to be one to go Surge of Power. He's like, no, you go Fleet Flute, as they say, in reference to how Remix used to say it back when he was streaming.
Nice. Yeah, well, I can't wait to see the build and steal it. I saw you did your Cool Bell build of the shift as well. Just shouting that out for anyone that missed it. But Viscous coming in. Viscous is really interesting because it seems like the splatter builds is super popular with Viscous, which is really nasty. Like, you're talking about the laning meta. It's actually so horrendous to be playing against it. I'm actually enjoying playing it a lot myself right now. But Rem coming in to finish things off for Melee Creeps. How do you feel about these two drafts, ZP? Where do you stand on this?
As I look at it and think about how the lanes are going to go down, it's kind of interesting. I think I put a little bit more value on the Melee Creeps early game. Bird of the Clock still has the wild card of we have a Bebop. Anytime you're running Bebop in this particular meta, you can win the early game off the power of Bebop alone. But let's say that Bebop has an average game. I think melee creeps have a way better comp as far as tempoing into the early to mid game. I mean, you think about some lanes are going to be strong. You're picking up the Rem, likely to boost the Shiv in one of the lanes. Warden himself is just a really strong laner that you're usually going to put in mid. Doorman, Apollo, if you put both of them in the same lane, good luck. Like, the melee creeps lane phase here is actually incredibly strong. And I think Bird with Clock, they're going to have to weather some of it and then pray that off the back of Bebop, they're able to make some plays and get an advantage from there.
I don't hate Bird of Clock's laning either, but I do see what you're saying, like melee creeps have a bit more explosiveness to it. I do think this is going to be, I mean, I don't know if this is just like in Counter-Strike, it's like, oh, this pistol round's going to be important, like the Captain Obvious thing that is obviously you could say, but for me, Pocket is so essential on Bird of Clock. Pocket always feels like such an X factor in what it's able to do, and especially given that Shiv and Warden is a really nasty front line. It feels like Pocket is the hero to shut that down. So I'm hoping we'll see a good performance from Bird of Clock on the Pocket. I think that could really make a huge difference in dealing with that front line.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right to point out Pocket in terms of things where, okay, it could go bad. It's not quite on the same level as if you get a massive singularity, but a big affliction is probably one of the few things in the game that will completely turn a team fight, especially before things like Divine Barrier get bought as counterbuys. So, I mean, if Bird with Clock can get to the middle to late game in a reasonable spot, like, they have options to take this game. I just think that melee creeps are going to be pretty dominating, like, through the first 15 minutes of the game. And it just kind of, okay, Bird with Clock, are you going to be able to weather the storm and deal with what's going to be pretty overwhelming pressure? Because I'm looking at the lanes now, Dan, thinking about how it's going to work out. I feel like for melee creeps, we're probably going to see Warden Paradox mid, and then Shiv Rem one side lane, Apollo Doorman the other side lane. And to me, I look at those lanes, and that's actually kind of horrifying.
Yeah, it is pretty horrifying. I think so. Bebop typically goes in the mid lane, and I'm curious like what the pairing will be. I think Geist is a good mid laner as well, because especially if you're going to be leaving Geist more as like the, someone that can kind of just get all that so-called that mid farm and kind of efficiently farm off of it. If it's going to be more of your M1 carry, which with this lineup, it looks like that probably would be the case. Bebop's kind of interesting actually, because we're not in a gun meta really, but like Bebop has this like utility and is very reliable and kind of tanky and can put out some gun damage. So it's like interesting how Bebop is one of those heroes where the gun damage is, or like being a gun hero actually, he managed to survive a little bit. But yeah, I think we should underestimate the power of Lash as well in this roster. As EP, I mentioned Pocket, I called him out, but I think Lash has been having a really massive performances. I've been surprised in some of the EU games in the last couple of weeks too, how much Lash has overperformed my expectations, and also in lane as well. Lash can provide a lot of burst damage and be very effective. So one of those side lanes in particular. So I don't know. I feel like we're setting this up for melee creeps, and I'm just trying to do that thing you do as a caster CP where I'm like, okay, what's the angle here? For Bird with Clock.
I think part of the angle for Bird with Clock is that if you do get late game, some of the late game Geist builds are really strong right now. Like, I think she came out ahead of some of the recent nerfs where people kind of looked at it and said, oh, okay, gun damage got nerfed. Yes, but HP went down across the board. Geist is better than most other heroes at actually reclaiming the HP. Flaws goes a pretty unique Geist build. I think more people have started to adapt where you actually get healing booster a little bit early on. And the way that Flaws was able to take like advantageous trades was pretty effective back in the qualifier game. So I think like Geist getting her this late in the draft may be more value than people are giving right now. But again, I think the part that Bird with Clock really has to overcome is just the part that the laning phase is going to be murder for them without a few things going their way. Again, I think you look a lot towards Bebop here, and also to an extent to Silver. Like, if you get in some longer, more scrappy fights, Silver has a way of picking up kills, even if like the fundamentals of the lane are otherwise against her. So I'm looking to who's playing Bebop, I'm looking to who's playing Silver, and seeing, can you do something to break some of the early game momentum that melee creeps is going to be given just by power of their composition.
Yeah, I mean, Silver's pretty nice. I think didn't her gun scaling get improved a little bit as well? So in lane she's a little bit more dangerous with the burst damage she can put out. I think something improved about Silver's gun. I can't remember the details, dude. These patches already destroy me. Honestly, I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing about Deadlock is that, it's not a game you can never take a break from. God forbid someone goes there, it's like, oh, I have I'm finally getting married. I'm taking, 4 weeks off for my honeymoon. You come back to Deadlock and you go, what in the world is this? Like, what has happened to this game as you look back and like, oh, Yoshi dropped 4 minor, in air quotes, patches. Is like, okay, there's nothing minor about these patches. So many things have changed, but the important thing that's changing here, Dan, is we are about to get in the game. Melee Creeps versus Bird with Clock in our biggest prize pool ever, presented by Shopify.
Yeah, and it's the best of one, so you can't take anything for granted here if you're Melee Creeps. Yeah, you've got to stand in, which is a dangerous territory to be in, but, we'll have to see, how the performance is from Poppers. It's going to be very interesting. It's also like a nice opportunity, too, if you're one of the players that isn't on one of the top teams. You get to kind of show off a little bit and maybe improve your stock value a little bit, so a good opportunity for Poppers. But yeah, let's see if these lanes have come out as you predicted, and it looks like they exactly have, at least for the orientation for Melee Creeps. But what do we think of the Bird with Clock lanes? Because we've got the Viscous with the Silver, Bebop and Geist in mid, which we talked about, and then the Pocket Lash, which, I mean, they're pretty good lanes, I think.
I mean, they're okay lanes. It's just left lane, that's painful. Like, you have your Silver off in the left, which is probably the most brutal lane to be going up against. It's also the strong lane for Melee Creeps. So on one hand, you want your Silver to have a reasonable early game, but even with the Viscous support, that lane is just brutal. Like, I think even though for the farm and the box routes, you'll put your M1 in middle, like that's what NA pretty much always does, so Flaws being middle was a given. I do wonder if you could have made the argument to maybe put Silver in middle with Bebop to, have more kill potential here, because all in all, I don't know. I think left lane, I have to keep a close eye on it here, Dan, because it could be super, super brutal for Bird with Clock.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I mean, having Viscous with the cube, is helpful. Having what else can I like? Is there anything else actually? That's really all we have. Constant splatter damage, I guess. But yeah, like I think the traits are just not good. It's just very hard to sustain against the bells and the lunges and the sigil as well, not to mention.
Middle lane is actually the strongest for Bird with Clock by far. Like, yes, Warden provides continual pressure in lane, same with Paradox, but it is killable and to an extent winnable for Bird with Clock, especially if, really, man of the hour here for me is Stride. Is Stride going to land hooks? If Stride lands hooks, there's a lot that can be done here for Bird with Clock, but, it's just a question of, is that going to come through?
Yeah, I have faith. I want to believe. And I gotta say, I do really enjoy this new Viscous build. I already mentioned that. And I'm actually really stoked to see Gibbs on it. Gibbs has actually been one of my favorites Viscous players in North America, and I don't always get to see it, so I'm pretty excited about that. And also excited to see Flaws.
Also, item-wise, the one thing we brought up in EU, but worth noting here, not we're in NA, is that extra regen, people just appreciate that this item is good now. And the reason is, people may look at it and go, what do you mean, rejuvenating shot if you're hitting your shots? It's more regen, isn't it? Everyone has moments where they're going off to run boxes. And as it turns out, the combined uptime of extra regen is just better. Like, that is a conclusion that multiple players and teams have had. And that's why when you look around, you see a lot of people with the bandage. Just kind of makes sense. Now people realize, oh, right, I would also like to get regen when I leave the lane. And Popper's in a bit of danger here, Dan.
Yeah, I was going to say, really good damage trades onto Poppers earlier from Tanner on the Silver. That was really, really well done. And they need to keep doing that. You highlighted so rightly how this is a dangerous lane, and they're even able to steal away this 2-1 cap a little bit. Applying some pressure after getting that kill into Poppers. So really good work on this left lane so far, more than holding their own. And in the meantime, we do have a skirmish also on the right side as well. So the Pocket Lash lane, the Pocket Lash is, again, honestly, there is a lot of playmaking potential here for Bird with Clock. So if they can just have like a good early game, here's EP. I'm really excited to see what shenanigans we'll see come those first objectives, and some of the roam as well.
Yeah, Pocket Lash is a lane when you're up against. You don't really ever want to get to half HP because there's a window where you will just die to burst. But that's also why I think it's pretty advantageous that you have both Shiv and Rem there. Two heroes that, if Rem gets low, you can at least tag along in the Shiv, and Shiv is one of the hardest heroes to burst in the game by virtue of bloodletting. So if you're trying to set up a lane that's less likely to go, I'm half HP and dead, going in with Shiv Rem against this particular lane is actually the ideal matchup for melee creeps. Like, I think melee creeps got the lane matchups they won on all ends, and, you know, it's a testament to Bird with Clock having some really good play on the left side to actually, you know, take a kill on the poppers and not get bulldozed against the Apollo Doorman lane.
Speaking of which, looks like Gibbs is in some trouble. No cube available. Oh my goodness, so much damage onto poppers as well. Players super low here. Everybody's really low. Tanner as well on the silver is going to go down. So Ido on the hunt on that doorman. Not quite going to be able to get there, but okay, the lane definitely shifting in favor of melee creeps a little bit here on the left side.
Also, we called on EU on Build of the Shift, or if you've had eyes recently in any competitive game, opening rounds. Opening rounds, just, if you're any character that used to get high velocity rounds to begin with, opening rounds is just the natural item to get. It is probably one of the absolute best items in the game at the moment, which is why you look at lobbies and go, oh, 6 or 7 people bought that, if not more. It just kind of gives you everything you want for, you know, well over half the cast at the moment.
Definitely a solid item.
I see paradox.
There's something in the patch as well. You know, there's a lot more debuff resistance as well. I think that might be coming into play in some of the ways people might be building heroes to deal with the CC.
Oh, swap.
Your mid.
Yeah, swap in the cage attempt, but just enough movement as tried to leave. It may not be enough to actually live. Gets parried, or rather, able to parry Warden towards the very end. It's just, you got last stand going, and you're gone. You're not able to add extra damage off the parry. Geist, not quite enough, although, it's okay, Flaws. How far do you chase this? Surely, that's about where it stops.
See Flaws out the monster rounds. Definitely going to see Flaws trying to get beefy as beefy as possible. In this game, with more roam from a lane partner stride.
Flaws actually, in Flaws' Geist build, Flaws goes pretty hard in the green items, more so than people even did pre-patch, where Flaws will not only get Dispel Magic, but go Spirit Resilience and late game Colossus. Nearly a 6k HP Geist into the late game, if Flaws is able to get farmed.
I respect it. Interestingly, you know, so far, you know, Bird Clock not too far behind, as maybe we would have expected. Now the push coming in. It's trying to do damage on this right side. Bird Clock getting 2 off of that. Nice conversion, dealing with the Ido and Scout. So, yeah, really holding their own here, ZP. It's a good start. I mean, is it better than you expected so far?
Definitely. I think for melee creeps, this is a bit of a disappointment here. You picked a comp that's entire idea was just crunching the early game. Also, Poppers just dropped Antani Losan on the Tanner, and Tanner just got cubed. Like, on the other end of the map and just looking at the UIs and just like, not the highest value Apollo. In fact, Poppers ends up dying in the middle of the exchange. And, all right, well, you feel the wolf is coming on out, and you just get the free trip to the Baroness. Courtesy of Ido. Just does not feel like dealing with silver shenanigans at the moment.
Honestly, the amount of doormans in matchmaking right now, just trying to cart you into the walkers and stuff, I just like pretty. It's honestly the most annoying thing in Deadlock at the moment. So I'm sure we're going to probably see something like that at some point in this game.
Here's the thing, Dan, that should scare people is that he's not being picked for that reason in comp. He's good on the fundamentals. But in your pub games, he still has the ability to send you into the walker if he wants. Like, you still have the ability to, you know, do what is somewhat of a trollish playstyle, but can honestly be effective. Still, taking a look at left, Guardian about to go down off the melee creeps pressure. And, I mean, even though melee creeps have had a few stumbles here, still able to start working on a considerable early game lead. And you look at who's getting the farm. I look and see John at 8k. It's like exactly what you want from Warden. Even better if you're able to get Geist here. Last stand coming on out. Getting hit with the soul exchange into a mostly retreat. It's somewhat of a more cowardly last stand, but HP come back in the John's favor, and no small part from Scout rejoining lane. A little bit of tag along and an HP creep, and gets you out of danger.
Yeah, Tanner's in trouble here. Just a quick bit of assistance off the rope there from Sire, and that's a very dead wolf. So we get a pause from Fishcake. We get a moment to really look at the game state because we are exiting the early lane now. We're getting a lot more roaming, and so let's see. Okay, so Flaw's actually not particularly well farmed if you compare to John, for example, like carry for carry. So definitely not looking great for BWC so far, but they are a few K behind in terms of the Guardians. Melee Crews have all their Guardians up. In fact, not just the Guardians are all up at 10 minutes, they're all very healthy too. So that tells you a tale in of itself.
Right now, you still have Sinners on the map, so you secure your own Sinners. Particularly when you're up against Rem, that's a part where you want to make sure that you clear doubles maybe a little bit sooner than the norm. But I'm curious here. I mean, this is just early into the game, not definitive, but we get a damage check-in just to see where it's at, you know, who's carrying a little bit more of the weight in the laning phase. Always be interesting to look at as the egg comes on down. It's the urn, but it's also the new egg that teams are looking to bring across the map, Dan.
Yes. The new egg. With all the fun surprises, the boons, the souls.
It is almost the size of Rem himself. We get take a look at Rem. You know, he's a little guy, and the egg might be bigger. No, it's a little bit smaller.
Like a dragon's going to come out of that thing. Okay, well, melee crews will make their way across, and you got a good work though from Deadlock. Although that goes down, they need to have strong control of this position. I don't know if they have enough numbers here. Everyone's a bit spread out for Deadlock. They'll try to contest, but it feels sketchy right now. Melee crews have a lot more players here. This could potentially be a very bad engagement, and you can see Deadlock just give it up.
Yeah, and that's rough, but not unexpected. I mean, given the comp that Melee Creeps went with, you kind of thought this would be a little bit of the case. The thing with Bird with Clock is that if the goal is to withstand and get deeper into the game, you can't really give up a whole lot more than this. Hook comes in on the scout, welcoming party is there, and not able to find anyone to tag along to, so quick pick off on the scout that helps even the scales just a bit.
Yeah, really nice by Stride. They need these hooks for sure. Like that X factor of that extra pick here and there. It's going to go a long way, especially with this slower start that they are up against. They've got to deal with all these Guardians that are still up. I mean, they managed to just take down 2, which has helped quite a lot. But so one more to go on this side of the map here, where Poppers is in control. Now, will we get any rotation across? Floz is holding down the only Guardian that Deadlock have actually on that right side. Perhaps we'll try to safely farm that side of the map.
Also, as far as items go, the item that started to make a comeback as we look at Lash run for his life, Arctic, nearly falling the flawless advance. Fortitude has really made a comeback, and it's on heroes, Dan, that will just have good pressure on the map and want to just be able to go from fight to fight. So you see it on Bebop, you see it on heroes like Doorman, and for now, this could be a relatively free walker. Coming on in. Nearly has enough damage. Yeah, first walker of the game. Going to go over the melee creeps, and off into the door they go for the quick escape.
Wow, 12-minute, 30-second walker is insanely fast. And I mean, that's part of the exceptional damage output that Apollo has. Apollo's like a pretty disgusting hero. Like, the burst damage output is ridiculous. I have been saying for so long that I've just been expecting enough, at least to like something like Sigil, like just like reduce some of the damage that it does, or something like that. But
I mean, for Sigil, I've had ideas on how to fix it, because in a way you just walk up, drop it, and it is free damage. And what makes him so ridiculous in lane is, again, you see the burst down. Itani Losan should be a dead Arctic off the rip. But no, disengaging Sigil, imagine if the Sigil lasted a little bit longer before doing damage, but slowed people. So it was more of an actual disengage tool, as opposed to I'm going to walk forward and you're just going to take this damage. But speaking of the Apollo damage, Dan, it's a lot of early damage from Mr. Poppers.
Yeah, not too surprising. This is what Apollo does. The flawless advance, and okay, someone's in the hotel. A couple players afflicted, but it doesn't really look like they're taking any damage. So not very good here for Deadlock. Starting to lose a lot of ground here. Quick death slam to try to recover something in this fight, but it's still looking pretty sketchy. Ultimately, there goes Matt on the pocket, unable to stay alive much longer, and it doesn't look like Arctic's going to stay alive either, trying to escape, but it's going to be melee creeps all over it, and I don't know what... I'm like, what will they convert off of this? That basically the world is their oyster. They can pretty much do whatever they want at this point. They are now almost 20k ahead.
Number one thing here is that Sinners are about to be respawning, and they're respawning when Melee Creeps has a gigantic advantage on the map. So you're going to sit here and you're going to take the enemy Gamba for sure. And you're going to look for extra picks as Bird with Clock comes out and tries to reestablish themselves. And, you know, frankly, at this point, you want to take extra fights. You are significantly far ahead, and stat-wise, it is in your favor. Matt right now seeing a little bit of this firsthand. Saya into the enemy jungle. Bird with Clock looking for their own punish. See Saya amongst a sea of blue. Look, not going to be bringing him in this time around, though.
Well, this game's interesting right now as well because something I don't know if it was discussed in the first half of the broadcast, but the boon change is a pretty significant change, I think, in terms of if a team gets ahead, if you can kind of like stay alive in the game long enough. You're not going to be too far behind on the boons because of how much more quickly everybody can get them. How much sooner, at least, getting to max boons. But I'm already talking about Bird with Clock getting absolutely wrecked here, and we'll see if they can do anything in this fight. Getting jumped on is not a good look. And it's so far, Sire's having a great game here on this Paradox as well. Another hero that's really made a resurgence in the recent metas.
Oh, Melee Creeps right now just looking to expand upon the lead that they have here, and also just to illustrate what this lead has done in terms of map control. See Gibbs just getting punished outside cube. We can look at the golden statues because Melee Creeps is able to go and get the last round of Sinners, and you take a look. No surprise to anyone here, Dan, but you got a little bit of feasting out of Rem. Also Paradox.
Yeah. There's more statue busts to be had here because in comes the dunk on to the comebacker, and that is going to make matters a lot worse here. 20k soul deficit right now for Bird with Clock here as they try to defend this position. Matt, though, he's going to be able to get it. They actually stopped the urn from going down. Melee Creeps not getting that one. Death Slam here onto Wido. He's in trouble just dancing around his own bell, but it's Poppers, though, that's doing all the damage right now. Getting all the kills.
Close the door!
Escape through
Close
the door! He can't. He's dead.
He's dead. He's dead. Yeah, exactly. Oh, God. Oh, boy. Yeah, so here's the problem in all that. Melee Creeps thought they had the dunk, and they don't. In this case, it was just a split second. They overcommit for the dunk, and you have Arctic able to come in, lands a Death Slam, and yeah, that a bit of a throw for Melee Creeps. And Bird with Clock, Dan, if that urn had went for Melee Creeps, even if they lose people, they still have an enormous lead. Off this, it's all sorts of tough.
Yeah, it was about an 8k swing right there for that fight in favor of, or an 8k recovery for Bird with Clock. They were 20k ahead, and now it's just a case of like farming very quickly, trying to clean up your lanes, and find some positioning on the map. There's no urn coming up for another 2.5 minutes, so there is time for them to try to stabilize their macro a little bit, and potentially look for maybe a gank or so, and they could certainly close the deficit slightly here as a bit further as they also begin to look for picks in a moment. And I mean, if they could get a couple picks, CP, yeah, the game kind of goes back to even somewhat. That golden statue difference does suck a little bit, but I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference at this time in the game.
The interesting thing with golden statue difference is that it's the one part of the game that comeback mechanics don't interact with whatsoever. It is the one way that it kind of leaves scars of when you have map control and can push things in your favor as things go on. But Saya, a little bit of a chase down onto Tanner. And right now, though, likely has enough room to get over in the Walker. Taking a look on the Poppers, Tani Losan gonna be dropped. And still, pressure all around him. The ground floor Death Slam, and I think Riposte went on. I think Riposte happened, and Poppers just got out of there.
That was pretty tense as well, because Poppers has a 1k bag as well. That would have been a really, really insane kill. As well as, he's got a kill streak, so they would get a lot of souls for killing him and the drop of the bag. That in of itself could have swung like 4k souls or something. I don't know. So very good save. The riposte is it's a strong ability, CP. It's pretty damn good.
I feel like Riposte may go a little bit too far. you hit Riposte, it's like, where's Apollo? He's 2 zip codes away. Oh no!
Yeah, I could see that being another thing they change. Actually, yeah, you're right. They got options. Valve.
I mean, Melee Creeps are still working with a bit of an edge at the moment, but it's not the edge that is at the point that Bird with Clock doesn't have options in the game. I think next turn going to be pretty vital here between both teams. I mean, ideally for Bird with Clock, I was gonna say you get a pick right now. Hook on the fish cake. However, not really the spot for follow through here. You're backed up by Saya, you get the swap and turn, and you just take down Stride. So even if you land the hook, if you don't have the backup there, it's not going to do much for you.
Almost back to that 20k difference again. So melee creeps already recovering themselves. Got that full map control as well. Lanes are pushed up pretty much. They still have that first stage Guardian too on the left lane.
It's been a quiet game Walker-wise too. Aside from the first Walker, the melee creeps pushed down. No other Walkers really taking much of a siege. A lot of the action this game in and around the urn. And interestingly enough, the lead is just enough that it is advantage urn for a Bird with Clock. And it's not really close enough that you can game it to make it something else. Still, looking at Saya. Saya going to get hooked into boot kick, into Silver, bringing out the Wolf. Saya may go down here, so they give up urn control, but they get the kill on the Saya. And okay, looking a little bit more here on the Fish Cake. Fish Cake desperately trying to get away, and a big change from this patch, Dan. You can't use the jump pad to get away the way you used to.
True, yeah. Yeah, it can be really punishing. Like the little egg cam we got for a second there. New egg cam. That does get dropped though. And by the clock, you know, they are trailing a little bit in souls here. But they're doing a pretty good job in really making the map feel threatening, I think, for melee creeps. And Flaw's actually got that vitality buff too.
Also, Pocket's value perhaps starting to go down as the game goes on. First Divine Barrier on the field for Scout, which is always a problem. I mean, eventually for Pocket, you are able to get Refresher and mitigate some of it, but this part of the game where maybe before you have Refresher, but as 1 or 2 DBs come up, it does really limit what you're able to do in Pocket. As once more, gonna see Fish Cake under pressure now at half HP. The Wolf comes out once more. Tanner still on the chase down. This is gonna be enough to take down Shiv before help comes out. Another slice and dice up through the window, and that's gonna be enough for Tanner. Pulls off the chase.
Yeah, to look to convert onto the Walker. Really amazing work there by Tanner. You got to give it to him. That was just a clean 1v1 there against the Shiv. In the meantime, though, the egg is looking to make its way into the comeback turn-in. And, oh, are they going to drop it? Yes, there's a quick melee there. The egg is now on the ground as the fight continues, but there's definitely numbers here. There comes the nap time as well, so doesn't really look like they should be able to. Battle Clock stop this from getting turned in, though. Heavy pressure, and there we go. Pocket coming on through. Matt will die, though, on that Pocket, and it looks like the conversion here, if the melee creeps is strong.
Melee creeps more than happy to take some of the trades here. Go for the Urn dunk. Urn turned in by Saya. Stride gets caught off to the back. And I think DB removed one of those afflictions too, so you kind of see part of the problem there from that, where even a 2-man affliction just not going to be enough at this stage of the game.
Yeah, despite all this though, ZP, you know, 14k difference, really the mid-boss, this would be the big issue, and there's not enough players up at the moment. I mean, there's ults here, you know, Death Slam would be so nice, but it's not going to get there in time. Will they try to delay? Do they have anything here that they can do to stop this? Absolutely not. Wow, that crystal just insta-died. I feel like sometimes the CP doesn't die that fast, but you know, whatever. No,
in this case, everyone was on the same page. Also, contesting when Doorman is on the rejuve is one of the harder things to go after. You know, there's some characters that are good at mid-boss, some that aren't, and Doorman definitely in the top tier of people you want on your team for mid-boss. And again, I'd like to see another golden statue check-in, because we've gone through another period of time here where melee creeps have just had enormous amounts of map control. And the advantage, Dan, more than the 20k that you see on the souls, this level advantage has really started to stack up. One rejuve, though, burned, and Saya may be going down for the count here. Birth Clock desperately scrapping out, looking for advantage, but the save! Scout comes in, gets the tag along, saves Saya, leads Tanner to his death, as Arctic takes a nice snooze in the Baroness.
Yeah, life is not looking all that good right now. Although, Fish Cake getting very low. The Pocket could be a problem right now. 300 HP. Oh, okay. I think he's going to bleed out. Looks like Fish Cake should, I think, die. We'll see if he gets saved. Still alive for now, but the pressure continues on this mid lane from melee creeps. Indeed, Fish Cake manages to get away to base. I thought he'd bleed out there, but looks like it was just shy.
I mean, you look at Shiv and yeah, probably the master of surely he's dead. And not. Especially if you have characters like Rem on the team dropping barriers, heals, and all sorts of good things. What I want to see here is a damage check-in, because usually at this point, this is where Apollo's contribution falls off a little bit and you start seeing who's actually bringing a lot of the damage into the late game. You know, as we're now, 24 minutes is basically mid-game is just about done, and it's the start of late game, so... And in terms of where you want people to be, John, plenty of farm at 30k. The shining light, though, for Birth Clock, Flaws at 31. Like, Flaws is still on the path to becoming a problem on Geist, even if the rest of Bird with Clock is a bit hurting.
And I mean, despite all of this, it's still roughly a 15k deficit. So it's, melee creeps can't be too crazy. They got. I mean, they have had a lot of dominance on the map and the macro in general, but they have to respect Bird with Clock and their ability to get stuff done here. So. And will be collected again. The whole macro picture is just full control for melee creeps. But Bird with Clock, they'll be on the reaction. We'll see what they look to try to do. Now they're able to intercept. Matt's actually having to run away. He's getting chased down in middle right now. Looking a little bit scary. Death Slam on the other side, though. We'll see who that is going to be able to find. And yeah, looks like Arctic has been put into the Baroness.
A little bit of an enforced timeout. But your Lash, you got some mobility options. Tanner getting hit with the Itani Losan. Focus fire onto the Silver. Stride gets hit on the outskirts. Fish Cake able to grab one. Bird with Clock, all sorts of wounded at the start of this engagement. Matt, after Affliction, able to get one. Also gets Fish Cake low in the fight. But look at John at this point here. Dan, if there's any more cleanup to go, you got a near full HP Warden. It's ahead of the game. Ready to run down those who remain. In this case, Sylvale Warden versus Geist. Soul Exchange can't come out. But the Warden's backed up by Rem. It's not an even fight. And that is Geist's extra HP bar off in the wind as Flaws now looking for the retreat. Also getting a look at the damage here, Dan, where, to no surprise, John, and also, frankly, Saya going way up in the overall damage for melee creeps.
Yeah, it's definitely looking pretty difficult. But you can see kind of the counterbalance there. Rem on 8.7k, and across the other side, you can see everyone's relatively even on damage. So definitely getting some stuff done here, but it's very hard to catch a lot of these different players, in particular Poppers on this Apollo, so you'll be able to escape with no issues. A hook here would go pretty huge, and there's the catch onto Rem. Is there a tag-along available? Looks like there is, but is that going to turn into another hook? It will. Fish Cake gets grabbed. Are they able to finish off Fish Cake? Gets a follow-up damage for this one. It looks like it's breaking out into a much larger fight, a full-on team fight now. 3 on the Affliction.
3 afflicted, and Scout being first to fall. Birth Clock, they have an opportunity. Now is going to be the time to strike. Those afflictions not being removed. Saya low, Ido low, Flaws in a pretty good spot. No soul exchange up, but still a pretty farmed Geist. Working for position here. Death Slam up over the top. Not fully completed. Stride picking up the urn in the middle of the fight. Bird with Clock able to get the turn in. So Bird with Clock keeping some opportunity alive here. A bunch of people alive, still at really low HP. Melee creeps would love to get a piece of that, and they do. Saya, Ido, and Poppers finally able to break on through. Gibbs may be joining them in just a moment. Super low HP Viscous, but look at the mini-map. I think he's clear. Still though, Dan, I mean, for Birth Clock, you get some trades there, you get the urn. I mean, you're keeping a bit of hope alive.
Yeah, they really are, but I mean, it just seems like the general story is that Poppers is just so impossible to kill. They can't even put time on him in fights because of how ridiculous it is to try to do damage to him when he's just using the flawless advance. You need some kind of CC lockdown to really deal with Poppers, and so far it seems too difficult to really get that in a lot of these spots, but it does, look competitive in these fights, like you said, and Bird with Clock, they're going to have to outscale melee creeps into the late game. That really is the only option, it would feel like at this point, bar some kind of crazy mid-boss steal or macro mistake from melee creeps. I mean, is that something that's even possible? Scaling against the Warden and Shiv is going to be pretty hard.
I mean, I think there's late game options here. I'd like to look at Matt's items here. I wonder if Matt has a refresher online. I think once you start getting to the point that you have 1 to 2 DBs up, and I think melee creeps may be up to 2 now. Have to get a check-in a moment. That's where ideally you'd like to get refresher, get pockets value back, but for now, not on the table. Maybe the next item for Matt. But yeah, I mean, the scaling for a clock, I mean, you still have a Megaton Geist, Silver can continue to be a threat into the end game. And in the end, you still got a Bebop. You still have one of the best ways of initiating and getting a pick in the game. But, you know, given the fact that you're at a deficit at the moment, it's still a bit of a tough road for Bird with Clock, as it's 30 seconds till next set of buffs and urns. Urn, singular, egg.
Okay, well, all it takes is a nice grapple from the man on screen. Stride. Open up one of these fights with an advantage, and that will change everything. That's why we're trying to play with the veil here. But the mid boss is up, and so right now, Bird with Clock, they can't afford a fight to not go their way. If the mid boss goes down, these rejuice get stolen. I mean, that's a wrap. Potentially.
Here we grab one half, and look at the patience. Riposte not triggered, meaning Poppers is vulnerable, half HP. The wolf is out, over in Death Slam when you really want Apollo dead. And that is the power of patience. You don't trigger the riposte, you get the punish onto Apollo, and with a one-man advantage, Bird with Clock immediately look to start going in the mid-boss.
This is the chance. This is what they were looking for. It cost them a Death Slam, which would be really, really helpful in the mid-boss fight, but what is the response of melee creeps? Okay, so they pull off the mid-boss here. Melee creeps moving forwards as well, looking to try to get a check in. They now understand that BWC have withdrawn, but now the fight in mid, and this fight's everything down a player. No poppers. Will that make the difference for BWC?
BWC, you cannot let this opportunity go awry. You need to strike now. You'll get no better. Or Gibbs, stuck in the barrenness for a moment, but the stay is over. Ido's actually pretty low HP as this fight goes on. Fishcake, though, crawling a little bit underground. Under focus fire from multiple members. Gonna pop the E-shift and look for an exit. Slice and dice off the other way. Gets hit with the frogs on the way out. A two-man affliction. But it's even bigger nap time coming in from Scout to do a little bit of a fight reset here, Dan. Hits 4 members of Bird with Clock. We look at melee creeps. They are all sorts of low. Half HP across the board. Post-affliction as Matt still looking for a hunt down here. Saya, the target of choice. See, Saya is able to get away.
Okay, Fishcake goes down. That's an enormous kill. Saya almost dead as well. Another affliction there onto Saya. So if they can finally get that kill, that would be massive, but looks like that's going to get purged away, and Saya's going to be safe. So 4 players up here right now for melee creeps. 4 players up for Bird with Clock. So no conversion on the mid boss off of that fight from either team. And this is really the best case for melee creeps. They need to just make sure they can get a 6v6, but in for the re-engage. And John doing all kinds of damage with the Warden. The lockdown comes on through, and he's getting sliced by the Lycan. And it's going to be Floss that goes down in the midst of this. Popper's looking strong and healthy in the fight right now, and it's problematic because John got away. Only 2 up here for Bird with Clock. Their chances, it looks like they've all but been destroyed here by melee creeps, as now finally Arctic goes down, and it's surely a mid-boss that awaits.
It was a full commit on the John, and John just a little bit tanky to deal with. I mean, you look at Warden's HP right now. If we could get the quick shot on the John and then maybe look at items across the game, but the HP for John is absurd. Look, yeah, I think it's in the 5k range at the moment. Yeah, it's 5.1k. Warden's HP, the way people are building this patch, he is a tank among tanks. So if you're not able to finish off on the dive, it gets tough. Also, you know, it happened in the last team fight, but just to call it out properly, you know, part of why the last team fight went well for them, Matt was able to get Refresher and land a second affliction that was pretty effective. Bird Clock, though, they just weren't able to get full control, you know, and frankly, get the pick on the Warden I think they needed in that, you know, back and forth melee, and it stopped them from potentially turning the game around.
Yeah, 6k Warden is kind of problematic. Is there anything like toxic bullets or something? Some like percentage health damage that they got? I can't see anything.
In percentage health helps. It just, you know, off the balance changes. You look at this. When my M1 is at 6k HP. This is why you're not seeing Venator be prioritized in the same way right now. And it's because Venator doesn't get HP pools like this.
Yeah.
Matt, oh, coming in off the top. It's like about maybe throwing out a few frogs. Doesn't quite have the opportunity. Coming back over. This time, frogs go down. It's a 4-man affliction. If any good's gonna come, it's gonna come now. It looks like 2 got taken off by DB. That still means 2 people struck by the affliction. Death Slam on the Fishcake in particular. Don't know if there's much of a fall through there. Poppers and Scouts still getting awfully low. Bird the Clock pushing the advantage. John looking for an opportunity to just get solid damage in. Last stand comes out, but a lot of the fight is kind of taken off to a different area. Still, Popper's able to get Gibbs on the back end. Nap time out, hits 2 on both Flaws and Matt. I don't know if Refresher's back up for Matt here, but Fishcake going in, multiple targets low. This is where melee creeps would like to be. And on the chase down, maybe enough to send this one away. All 3 Rejubes still up.
Yeah, and they couldn't get Ido dealt with. Ido was very close to going down, but that was the only hope for a pick-off. And instead, melee creeps converting on every kill. And with this, and still 3 Rejuve crystals alive, I mean, this has got to be it now. And finally, they can deal with this, the last remaining Walker, and just start to really do some serious objective damage in this matchup. But I mean, that was such a good affliction too. The fact that, you know, like you were saying, with the Divine Barrier purging 2 of them, you got to give it to melee creeps for having like really good in-fight awareness to be able to get to purge the most important afflictions off of the, you know, the most important players. Like John's affliction was insta purged by the Divine Barrier, so it's really good teamwork and awareness from melee creeps.
Yeah, and you know, Bird with Clock, they came really, really close to bringing this one back, but now it might be over. Also, people wondering on the War Denied build, it's like, why is it 6k? One of the key patch note changes is that Colossus got reworked, and it lost its flat HP and gained percentage HP. And for heroes that are tanky to begin with, like Warden, that was a big, big net bonus. The other end, though, going to go in for melee creep, says they're doing everything needed to solidify the win. At 60k down across the board, getting any kills for Bird with Clock now, Dan, is going to require an act of the divine.
True. I mean, to be honest, you know, just huge respect for BWC with how well they've like managed the macro in a lot of these like really, really difficult spots. They've really fought for this game, and you know, with 60k deficit now, it doesn't really feel like there's any good opportunities that are left. And in fact, we might just take down the base and leave a Walker up. You don't see that every day, but it's like melee creeps are going to be going for it, and it's going to be the last stand here for Bird with Clock.
Flux slots, they're overrated, but melee creeps off into the finish. A 4-man affliction, even with divine barriers. That could get a little bit ugly, but you got rejuvenators in tow. Is it going to be enough? Bird with Clock in the pit, looking for the miracle defense. The biggest prize pool on the line. And the defense isn't bad here so far. Tanner, though, cannot die. Tanner needs to get back to spot, not quite able to do it. Scout, though, goes down in the melee. Melee creeps potentially about to lose Poppers. This all in onto the base could be ill-advised here so far. Bird with Clock doing a really nice job here, Dan, so far of getting away from the pressure. And melee creeps, looking at the map, they are continually pushed back. The end of the game may have to wait a little bit longer. Arctic, though, goes down, so we'll see if melee creeps come back in. I think they keep up the push here. I mean, there's so little HP left in the Patron, and yet there is a risk.
Yeah, there is. There's always a risk. It was just like, you know...
There's no more risk. The guy's dead. Guys are a little bit on base. It's over. For real.
Fishcake's pretty nasty. I mean, the late game shiv is pretty difficult to stop. Quick little grab and a hug. But that's going to be it. Bird with Clock are going to fall. It's a great effort, but melee creeps with the standard. Poppers doing a great job actually on the Apollo will bring melee creeps to the money match tonight here in North America.
Yeah, and of course for Poppers, this was just a sub. Due unavailable. Poppers out here trialing for multiple different teams says, yeah, I can sub for you melee creeps. Why not? And certainly it works out. And honestly, Dan, this game felt like it stuck to the script for a lot of it, that it was a really good early game showing from melee creeps overall, kind of dictated by the comp. But, you know, Bird with Clock, they were still able to find ways to bring some of these fights back in. And, you know, I think back to that middle fight where they got the hook off the pickoff, they set the 6v5, and it was so close, Dan, to turning into Bird with Clock bringing the game back.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that was, I think, the most surprising thing for me is that they were working from behind in a macro way, just always, you know, just coming off the back. You know, they had 3 Guardians up at 10 minutes they had to deal with, and they were always behind, but they never allowed that macro advantage that was being played out by melee creeps of all teams to get to put them in a position where they couldn't have a good shot at winning the game. And even when it mattered the most, before that mid boss, they were able to find the pick onto the most hard to lock down player, Poppers, which allowed them to have a chance in actually converting that really big fight. So like, So, I mean, honestly, Deadlock did such a great job in this game to make it possible. But I think, like you mentioned, that early game, it was just very hard to deal with and come back from.
I will say, I think that the pick on the poppers that nearly started the comeback for Birth Clock, that is a case study on how to deal with Apollo, where it's difficult because it requires your entire team to be on the same page. Only one person can trigger riposte, and thus Apollo's getaway. But everyone put pressure on to poppers, and then everyone stopped DPS at the same time. And you kind of look at Apollo and be like, oh, wait, your riposte doesn't work anymore? And like, this hero's actually killable. They probably didn't even need to use the Death Slam after, but, you know, with how much grief he was causing them over the course of the game, Dan, sometimes you just want to be sure.
Yeah, that they had. Yeah, you got to lock it in. If there's any doubt, you got to lock it in. And I mean, again, yeah, it really turned into an extremely protracted team fight, which certainly could have gone their way, given how long the team fight itself went on for. So you know, they did their best against melee creeps, but it is melee creeps after all, even with the stand-in. And you know, melee creeps going into the final, it's going to be really exciting. It's always a fun team to watch, and these best of threes right now for me, I'm just really loving the draft process. There's so much that can be done in the current draft, and we've had so many changes that it's just a lot of fun. I can't wait to get started.
And for melee creeps, they're hoping this is just the first of many. Again, the last few weeks have not been entirely kind to them. It's been, you know, troublesome ever since, you know, new sponsorship has come in. Melee creeps, they've struggled to win, and they were really hopeful coming into today that today would be the day that they're able to turn things around and retake the throne here in North America. But we gotta look at the stats at the end of the game, and you know, it's funny. We did the damage check-in early on, and we saw how far ahead Poppers was, but you look at, you know, coming from behind and just really carrying the end game of damage. Yeah, sure, John is up there, but Fishcake also had a monster game, Dan.
Yeah, definitely did. And I mean, Shiv is always going to be dangerous in the hands of a good player, and especially once you get some of those items online, you know, it becomes pretty ridiculous, the output. And I mean, John, you always just know that he's going to be performing as well. But I think for me, the most surprising thing, and maybe it shouldn't be surprising now that we see Paradox back, is that Saya had, you know, despite all of that, like Saya's competing pretty healthily for that top damage spot on the team.
Also, one thing that's a little bit interesting is that teams actually pulled off a little bit from the opening round spam. Back in the qualifier and even some of the early days of the R1 tournament, we were seeing 6-7 opening rounds per lobby. This time around, actually only 1 opening rounds for melee creeps, which is a little bit surprising because I gotta ask John. I would have thought he would get it on Warden of all heroes, because Warden generally enjoys extra bullet velocity on top of everything else, but no opening rounds to be found on John. And Locket, I wanted to talk about this mid-match, but Locket has kind of landed in a good spot right now where the heroes that are generally more stamina heavy are still going to buy Locket. Like if you're Geist and you're trying to trigger kinetic dash more aggressively, if you're a hero that's otherwise eating a lot of stamina, you like Locket still even after the nerfs. But the heroes where it's just more about HP and you're not churning through as much stamina, they've kind of shifted a little bit and they're not buying Locket as much, which to me, I actually feel like that means a balance on it may be exactly right now.
Yeah, that's a great call out. I like that a lot. Yeah, it does seem like it's come into balance. I totally agree with you. Yeah, other than that though, I mean, it's a good warm-up for melee creeps here. You know, what do you feel like their prospects are? You know, we got to see them with the stand-in. Poppers did a good job on Apollo. You know, hero that we could see do on. Like, what do you think their prospects are looking like going into the finals?
I'm gonna make it conditional, and conditional number 1 is, can you get a single kill on Dimov? Dimov, I think, went through like 3 straight maps. He's on like a 3-map streak of not dying, Dan. Like, we're gonna go with the small goals before the big goals. Like, yes, winning the map or winning the series would be great, but let's start from the basics. Get a single kill on the Dimov, work from there. You can't let EU's arguably former top player come to NA and act like he has invincibility, Dan. Like, that's number 1 that has to go.
I mean, I kind of love it because it's always been the case that, you know, EU's better than NA. Like, you know, that's basically always been the case. The only time I've seen that not be the case in a newer esport was actually Valorant in the early days, but that kind of switched around eventually. So I don't know, ZP, it's just a story as old as time. You know, the EU players just built different.
Well, speaking of people built differently, when you're coming in the sub, that's a sidekick play if I ever saw one. Popper, the help that melee creeps needed, or poppers, I should say, coming in on the Apollo, died a little bit in the early game, but into the mid game, massive contribution on Apollo, and a big reason why Melee Creeps were able to chalk up the W here and get into the money match once more.
I totally agree with that. I think it was a great recovery off of a somewhat non-ideal early game from what you would expect, but I think going into those objective fights especially, we saw that Poppers, and also actually I think a solo take essentially almost of a Walker too at the 12 minute 30 mark, also very powerful, but just being unkillable and just not really, or rather when there's a period of the game when there wasn't the lockdown tools to CC Poppers, he was just doing everything at the team fights. And it's why we saw that Poppers was so far ahead in damage in the mid game portion, which is where Melee Creeps really solidified that lead that they just then never let go of.
Also, I'm hearing some of the reactions, like production is letting me know. Look, I'm gonna be honest, when it comes to calling out numbers, I did not do any of that intentionally. I cannot keep a straight face when it comes to going for obvious memes. Unfortunately, that was all authentic and organic in mentioning two numbers in the middle between 1 and 10. But luckily, Dan, we can avoid the subject and go into the highlights and see a little bit more of what Poppers was able to do over the course of the match. And a lot of these highlights are gonna come in the mid part of the game.
Well, not a fun time for Arctic, or really, to be honest, most players on Bird O'Clock. With these shenanigans here from Poppers, seemingly unkillable in all these spots. It's very hard to lock down. Always somehow, it looks like at that spot, it's a long protracted fight, but somehow he's just max HP, just chilling. It's just kind of ridiculous. Nice little sigil there for your. I mean, Arctic's really getting the brunt of these highlights, being on the receiving end of it at least.
Bebop had the fix in. Even though Stride was on Arctic's team, just the character takes a little bit of precedence. Get that lash hitting the ground montage. The ego's a little bit too big. But all in all, good start for Melee Creeps. They get their berth into the money match against Floormen, who of course are our new champions. Things seemingly just changing week after week. They took the throne away from FPS Lounge. FPS Lounge now doing a little bit of roster rearrangement where they parted ways with Erebus, and I think they wanted the week off to work and prepare. But it does create a golden opportunity for Melee Creeps now, Dan, to take the throne.
Yeah, especially with our beefed up prize pool. Melee Creeps are going to get a shot at it, a pop at it, if you will. And I mean, like you say, Floormen, it's really exciting to have Demov in that lineup, and also to see all the hard work that Floormen have been doing as a team and as a roster come to fruition for them, and to hold on to that title is what they're going to be looking to do. And again, I got to say, there's a lot of really good Demov heroes. Maybe it's basically the whole cast, I guess you could say, but in the current meta. So I feel like we're going to see an exciting game.
Well, the stakes have been set. Melee Creeps against Floormen, the biggest prize in Night Shift history for our Wednesday broadcast. Who's going to take it? Tune in after to see.